This video is sponsored by Proxy Score, Real Lift, Ballistic Fab, East Coast Gear and Axle, Comp Cams, Harlan Sharp Roller Rockers, Automotive Spring Overload, Power Labs Dyno and Tuning, and special thanks to Riot Fab Inc. and Third World Machine and Fabrication.
Next, we have some performance modifications that I am doing. This is a intake manifold spacer, so it's the whole spacer. It's pretty beefy there, kind of gives you an idea. And it comes with extra O-rings, but I will not need that. I'll show you why here in a minute. And then all the spacers that we'll need. This will be for the throttle cable, which right here, like if you remember on the last when we did the video, when we did the throttle body spacer, there was spacers underneath my fingers touching, and this other side, in other words this frame, to lift it all up with everything else. And this is all the hardware. This is for the spider injector. That'll be right in the center, and that'll lift the whole thing up, and all the hardware. And it's called VMAX manifold spacer. They claim that it is 12 to 14 horsepower increase. All right, next, this is a US injection company, and they are the only company that does injectors for the 4.3. They do 36 pound, I believe 50 pound, and then 60 or 80 pounds. So I mean, if you really wanted to beef up your 4.3 with boost and everything, this is the company who you will have to talk to, because you do not want a carburetor in that situation. This is just so much better with technology of tuning and all of that. And so that is what this is. This is a 36 pound injector, and the rule of thumb is you take the pounds the injectors are, you times it by 2, so it's 36 times 2. That'll be 72 pounds per injector, or sorry, how much horsepower these injectors can support. You times each injector by 2, so it'll be 36 times 2 times 6, and it'll support up to, I believe, 432 horsepower in this engine. So this would be the natural aspirated injector. Naturally, you know, natural aspirated is not going to go over 432. But this is the one that you'll have to have if you cam it, if you bore it, if you do all that, and you would like to actually get peak performance. You have to have one of these. Okay, so the fuel pump of a stock S10 is a 50 pound fuel pump. Usable pounds is going to be 42.5. The 36 pound injectors can easily be supplied by a stock S10 fuel pump, so you do not need to upgrade anything else in the fuel system. Just this, tune it, and reap the benefits. Okay, I got the upper intake manifold off, and it's not too hard. You just have to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So there's 10 millimeter bolts, and then you just push it out. Basically, your fuel line right here has to be unbolted right there. It's also another 10 millimeter, and you have to take off your upper radiator hose. Do this before you have it unloosened, so that you don't get water in your intake. Other than that, there's just a couple things that you unplug and have to move to the side. It's not too bad. I unhooked the wires for the spark plugs so I could get to that bolt easier. You probably don't need to do that, but just make sure you plug those back in, as well as every air hose like this and this PVC valve, things that will make your engine run kind of funky if you don't plug them in. And this is a newer style. This is what I did on one of my other videos. This is actually a really good spider injector. The fuel on it kind of made the seal a little wanky, but that's okay. It came with a new one in this kit, so I'll put that with this, and I'll install this one in my black one because it seems like my black spider is temperature sensitive. Okay, so I got it in, and in general they kind of just slide in. You got to watch out for these two that are here because they kind of go at an angle on each other. Same with that backside. That backside was the hardest to get in, but I did get it in. See where the oil lines are? They need to be that far. That's going to be, I might have to try to grab these and just bend them somehow with my hands. I'm not going to put any wrench on it, but getting them in here is going to be a pain in the butt. Just a heads up. But there's something that is good about them. Let's move on over here to this one. Okay, there is little, I think you can see those little plastic pieces right there, that all you got to do is just get them started. Let me see if I can pull one of them up. Well, I don't know if I can pull it up, but you can kind of see them. So those there, and then you can see the little white ring inside. The metal, when it gets on these, they're kind of guides, and so you just press it in, and those white rubber will go around and seal. So those just act as guides. If it kind of goes in an angle, as long as you can push it and it's going in, it's fine. It will align as it goes through and then into that rubber ring. So just be aware of that. Now this is going to be fun trying to weave this inside here. That's how I had to get this in, was put it up inside here and weave it down because this was in the way, and the fuel line. I might have to take the upper radiator hose off and then re-silicone it to get that in, but let's try doing that next. Do you want to hear my most favorite sound? That is my most favorite sound. That means we are done. Well, let's kick the tires and start the fires and see what she sounds like. I don't think anything changed, but let's just see if it works. Well, I think the okay, she runs now, but I think it took a little bit of a learning curve for those new injectors. It kind of sputtered a little bit. Now it's running, but there's like, it smells pretty rich. I mean, you can kind of see the cloud. We'll wait for it to warm up and see how she runs after that. But there she is. Okay, now she's running good, nice and warmed up. I think the computer learned the additions that I made. All right, so let's talk about my next sponsor, and this one I'm actually very excited about, and it is the Granatelli 0 ohms spark plug wires. They are not, this is for the 4.3, and when I looked at their website, there's some that are like real insulated and thick, and they were looking like very expensive and extreme for the LS engines. And so when I ordered this one, I found out that it was the smaller wire, and I'm thinking, crap, maybe it's not going to be 0 ohms, just like the videos that I've seen, and these are serious. Like, there's one guy I watched, he took it to Granatelli and they did the spark plug wires and coil, new coils for his LS. He put it on the dyno and he gained like 58 horsepower just on plugs. Granatelli was so surprised. They're like, I think there's something wrong with your plugs, because your plug wires, because or the electric system in whole, because we've never had it that big. They've always been between 15 to 30 horse increase, but just on plugs. Like, I've always been skeptical on I don't know, spark plugs. What exactly can they do? But I am a true believer on a couple spark plugs, but they're definitely not going to do what these things can do. And let me show you. All right, let's set this up here. Hopefully you can see everything. Okay, so I have my ohms meter, and it will alarm, as in, can you hear that? So you can see right here, the ohms, 0 ohms, zeroed out. Let's go for a stock spark plug wire, which is a 7 mil, which, you know, 7 mil back in the day was actually pretty good. So for stock. And if you look at that, we're at 1872 of resistance. So that's actually kind of bad. Maybe they're getting wore out. And I actually tried it on these other 3 spark plug wires, and they were all 1835, 1836. All right, now let's try this bad boy. So you put it in on that lead there, put on this one, see what happens. Can you believe that? It thinks that we're touching here and there's nothing in between. There will be no resistance from the coil to the spark plug wire, and you will get maximum output of electricity to your spark plugs to light the fire. So I'm actually so impressed with this that I bought 2. See, 1, 2. 1 for that blazer, 1 for this. And I'm gonna test it. I'm gonna put it on here. Every time I fill up, I know my miles per gallon. That's how I can tell you of how much miles per gallon I increased with my EGR delete. How I put the spacer in and didn't do anything on the throttle body. So now I'm gonna put the spark plug wires on it, and I'm gonna let you know how the MPG works, and maybe, you know, I'll do a 0 to 60. The bad thing is there's no snow on the ground, so my 0 to 60 numbers before in the winter would naturally be slower because of you know, everything being colder. But I'm thinking this is going to have a better 0 to 60, and for the race, I think I'm going to. It's going to be helped out a lot with my EGR valve, with my plenum spacer, and my spark plug wires. So. All right, let's put them on and see how they do. So one thing I do not like about the Granatelli spark plug wires is every one of them has a straight boot. And what I had to do is take 2 wires from each box for both blazers and send them back. And they did replace them for free, but I did install 2 90-degree boots on there. Another thing about them, right after I installed them, I think it advanced my timing in my engine, because the idle was about 1100 when it was just idling, and I would let off the gas and there's still enough power and it would just be going. It took about 150 miles before it tuned down, and everything worked just fine. But I filled it up 5 times. This is the averages, with an increase of 1.5 miles per gallon. I highly recommend these plugs. In 3 months, they'll pay for themselves. The vibration that kind of happens, the little flutter when it's parked or idling, went away. I also am working on my anti-wrap bar. Some geometry schematics that I've seen, they say have it go the same distance as your leaf spring. And others say you want to have it as long as you can get it. Well, long story short, this is the only place I could put it. You can see that little groove right there. This is my cross member here. My blazer frame isn't too thick, so I wanted to get it up inside. That's kind of how I built it. See how I notched it right there? I'm going to weld it to the frame, as well as possibly put a couple of bolts with a plate above it onto the body, so it's secured to the body and the frame, because I don't know how well those welds will hold when I build that. And then there's the anti-wrap portion there. And then this, let me see if I can hold everything with my hands. Here's the top mount, and I have it already cut, and I'm starting to cut it here. You can see the little gouge with the grinder, but that's going to go there. That's what the finished product will be. As soon as I get that all up, then I'll weld it and finish it off. So this is the anti-wrap bar that was sent. This is the extra. They do send a lot, so you can make them really long if you want. It is 1/4 inch DOM, very heavy quality stuff, and that was just my extras. It came from Ballistic Fab, and they are my sponsor. So, and I do love their product, but I highly do recommend them. So I cut the whole exhaust out. I'm going to try to use these mounts right there and here, the stock exhaust mounts. This is where the catalytic converter went. I sold it today for $180. Supposedly had a higher platinum content than others. And I cut the Y pipe like right in half where it joins, and I added this 3-inch tube, and then that plate there is stock, and then I cut it out, and you can kind of see how big that hole is. It's pretty impressive. Let's move to what I cut out. Okay, so this is the pipe that's right from the Y. You can see that, and so that's where I put the tube that I built. I just see how it's just kind of really close to that, so I just smashed it, made it oblonged, and it went right up and welded. So in other words, the distance from here, like all that area, is basically a 3-inch from the Y that comes down into a 3-inch. So this is the before and after of the catalytic converter, and the O2 sensors, the upper and upstream and downstream, I don't need, because I changed out the 411 PCM, and we're totally taking that out when we tune it, which is going to be really nice. So this stuff is gone. Here, actually, I want to measure this real fast. So this pipe is, inside diameter is 2 1/4, but this was on the other side of the catalytic converter. It's kind of a really small glass pack. You really can't see it, but there's little tiny holes in there. And this is only a 2-inch opening. So it was a 2 1/4, and it necked down to 2-inch, which I think is pretty crappy. And previous owner must have done that, make it sound cool, and I'm glad someone can weld worse than me. So this is what I'm going with. This is the classic Cherry Bomb, and they can sound pretty sick. And this inside diameter is actually quite a bit bigger, because the 3-inch will just slide right inside. But this kind of gives you an idea of what it used to be and what it is going to be now. So I'm really excited about that, to figure out what it's going to sound like. I just welded this all up. That was a pain in the butt, trying to get everything angled right. So when I first started it with everything, that includes your 0 ohms spark plug wires. Once again, the computer needed to adjust its timing and things of that sort, as well as the exhaust, taking that apart and putting it back together. Took a little bit for it to time itself, map itself, and to run. As soon as I first started it, I would hit it real fast and it had very good throttle response. Now that it's been running a little bit more, and I've been, going from, 700 RPM to 2000 RPM, and get the map built, it's not as responsive as it was before, but it just needs good tuning. Anyway, so that's what happens when you do changes like that. The exhaust I did, I cut it all the way back. 3-inch is here, and there's your Y. When I squeezed it, everything fit in. The gasket here is inside diameter, works perfectly, so I don't have to worry about narrowing it out, even though I did on the brackets. I did cut those out. And I'll use the stock mount there. This one here needs to be, I'll still use a stock mount, but where the bolts are, that's where the mount can't go. I'll extend it over here somewhere. And what you saw in that video before, the drive line's right there. I have the anti-rat bar and the exhaust all in the same area, so it's going to be really tight. But I'm not imagining the axle's going to walk side to side that much to hit it, but it is very close. The mount here that holds the torsion bar has to go up. See how tight it is here, and then there's a big gap up here on the torsion bar. This needs to move up higher so that when I put the A-arm here, this will have more room to move, and it's rubbing right there. So, which is fine. I didn't think it was going to work perfect, and I have done mock-up as I'm building my A-arm, and I definitely know that I have to move this cross member here. I got to move it higher, and when I move that there, you can see there's still a little bit of a gap there. I can still move it up and not worry about it, but the exhaust still needs to go up a little bit more when I move those mounts. So that's where I'm at. The traction bar, I figured put a cross member here to build it like a web of a truss of a house, and put the web there to support any hit here. Everything else I think is supported really well, and then I'll tighten up those bolts after I get that welded in.